We're going to take a look at some of the Trinity College in Connecticut movement coaches off of their odd front. A lot of what they do, 90% of their odd front, they are moving post-snap. And this coaching staff at Trinity does a good job talking about the different types of movement, whether it's a one-step movement, which they classify as a drive step, or a two-step movement, which they classify as a stick step. So we have some wide and tight shots here of some of this footwork in action. Particularly our focus right now is just working on a defensive line and how they move and where they need to be by the time the ball is snapped. So we'll focus more on the end zone shots than anything else here. This is their 2-2-I, their even front. Okay, they like to line up in 2-2-I's because it's hard for the offense to decipher where they're going pre-snap. I think that's pretty clear here. What we're going to take a look at now is this left defensive end. Everyone's taking one step to the right. Okay, now Trinity talks about where they're going to call their front or where their movement is going pre-snap. It's all built into their call, which is explained in further in the copy of the text of the special report on odd front defending the spread run game. But what you're going to see here is a movement step to the right. It's going to be a drive step. What I like here is I'm watching this player here working the 2-eye technique. The coaching staff at Trinity talk about stepping with their eyes and hands, okay, and making sure that they're feeling things out and they're moving with their hands. Their hands must attack the gap. So what you're seeing here is a drive step or a one-step movement by that left 2-eye technique, okay, and he's automatically replaced, okay, by that number 43, that inside linebacker. It's just a gap exchange. Most programs do it, but it's how they teach it, and we have the drill work in the special report here in terms of what the coaching staff does there to train it. Coach Mielson, the defensive line coach, and the rest of the staff at Trinity. So he's able to see, he's able to backdoor this again, but again, good footwork, good movement. He's able to cancel out that gap pretty quickly. Okay, we'll see another drive step or single gap movement here. I want to take a look at this 2-eye technique here. All right, so again, they're moving to a 2-eye. They're moving now to the tight end surface or the three-man surface. He is working to stay in that A gap. He is not going to cross that face because it's a single gap movement. Okay, but you notice how he plays with his hands. He's able to redirect because he plays with his hands. It's attacking the gap with your hands is the concept there. Coach Mielson and the rest of the defensive coaching staff at Trinity, they don't talk much about aiming points in terms of far hip, via the neck, things like that. They talk about is the block to you or away from you. Right now the block is to him. So he's going to control that block with his hands. He's going to stay in that gap, and he's able to push-pull, play with leverage, and nearly make the tackle here, but get in on the play. Pretty good movement there. Now we're going to see some two-gap movement, which at Trinity College has talked more about a stick step. We have some excellent examples, some clips here for you. Okay, I want to look at the right defensive end first. He is working a stick step, so he is going to work to get into that A-gap. Now, that's his job, to get into that A-gap. Watch how this thing progresses. As he takes his footwork here and he works that A-gap, he sees the block come at him. All right, when the block come at him, Coach talks about him coming underneath that block to play into the A-gap. Now, as that happens, the staff trains their linebackers to over-pursue away from the movement. And the reason being is the ball can never be run inside in these stick movements. The ball has to bounce outside. The ball cannot be run there. That's the terminology that Coach Aquilaro and the rest of the defensive staff at Trinity College talk about, where that ball now has to be bounced. You see there's a great stick step. Okay, the running back doesn't have much vision here. He is forced to either bounce it outside or get tackled right there. And it's a great job running the ball down. Okay, now we're going to take a look at that nose again. Again, working a drive step, two-gap movement. So the left defensive end now should be working to cross face, okay, of that guard. Here comes the nose. He's working into the A-gap. Since his block is now away from him, that nose cannot chase that play side guard. He's going to stay in that A-gap, and he does a terrific job here maintaining presence in the A-gap, plays with his hands. And what that does, and again, we just talked about that in the earlier clip, he swaps responsibilities with that Mike. So now the Mike knows the ball is not going to be run here, so he could play behind, and because of that, The back is stuck here with nowhere to go. You have an excellent drive technique by that defensive end. Here comes the nose redirecting. He forces that center off the block, which is something that's a pretty good coaching point here. The center is forced to work off him, probably a little bit too prematurely, and that nose is able to get back in on the play. But that's the whole concept behind it. The two-gap movement forces the linebackers to overcompensate in that situation because the ball's not allowed to run back there. Okay, we're going to take a look at this right defensive end here. Again, two-gap technique, or excuse me, a drive technique, a stick sec. So now the block is going away from him, so he is going to close down that line right now and take up all that gap. You know, it's very difficult for an offensive tackle to defend that. He's got a clear shot on the running back. This last example here is another good example of that drive footwork, or that stick footwork, excuse me. That's a two-gap stick movement, so he is working into the A-gap. Okay, see the two techniques should be working to cross the center's face. Right now that's a down block. That's an easy opening, an easy cavity for that stick step into the B-gap. Now watch what happens here. He's going to show presence into that B-gap. Again, the linebacker knows he is going to overcompensate because the ball cannot be run inside in this situation. And he's there to make the play. So that's just the teaching methodology behind Trinity, okay, and what they teach their defensive linemen in terms of attacking the gap with your hands, making sure you take the right footwork, and forcing the ball out to the linebackers in their both drive and stick step footwork.